So Charles Spencer walked into a room full of royals wearing a Seville row tuxedo, carrying a folded piece of blue paper that nobody had approved. Within about 15 minutes, the entire carefully constructed narrative surrounding Queen Camilla had reportedly collapsed on live television. The remarkable part is that the palace itself handed him the podium. They invited him to speak, prepared a speech for him, loaded it into the teleprompters, and assumed he would simply read it. After all, that's what aristocrats are expected to do at galas. They smile, make polite remarks about legacy and unity, and then quietly return home. But Charles Spencer is not just any aristocrat. He's the brother who stood in Westminster Abbey and delivered the unforgettable eulogy for Princess Diana. He's the one who refused to let the palace control how Prince William and Prince Harry mourned their mother. And, according to this account, he also spent 6 months working with lawyers to create a legal structure so airtight that not even King Charles III could challenge it. So when he stepped up to the podium at the Victoria and Albert Museum, he wasn't there to surrender anything. He was there to detonate something. Before we dive into exactly how everything fell apart, if you enjoy breaking down royal drama and the moments when the palace loses control of the narrative, be sure to subscribe to Crown Watch. We're following every development in this story. Now, let's talk about what reportedly happened inside the gala, because the contradictions began piling up before Charles Spencer even walked through the door. That morning, the palace press office allegedly leaked a briefing to the Times, claiming that the Spencer family was preparing to hand over Princess Diana's final artifacts to the Crown Trust. The move was presented as an act of healing and unity. According to this narrative, the timing was deliberate. If the public expected Charles Spencer to surrender the items, then refusing to do so would make him appear uncooperative or confrontational. It was portrayed as a classic palace public relations strategy: set expectations, apply public pressure, and make anyone who resists seem petty or unreasonable. They assumed Charles Spencer would give in. They assumed they were wrong. What they didn't know, what nobody in that room knew except for 2 people, was that Charles Spencer and Prince William had been working on something entirely different. The timeline matters because it suggests this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment emotional decision. According to the narrative, it was the result of 6 months of legal work and 6 months of complete secrecy. The kind of secrecy where you can't tell your staff, you can't tell your friends, and you certainly can't allow anything to leak to the palace. According to the account, Charles Spencer had enlisted a leading barrister to establish what was described as a sovereign trust, a legal entity allegedly designed to exist outside the reach of the crown. The story further claims that, while the British monarch possesses significant authority, properly structured private trusts are treated differently under the law. It also alleges that Princess Diana's 1996 divorce settlement contained an obscure clause that her legal team quietly inserted while the palace was focused on removing her HRH title. According to this narrative, that clause stated that Princess Diana's private intellectual property, including her diaries, letters, and personal papers, would permanently remain the property of a private citizen. At the time, the palace reportedly considered the provision insignificant. The focus was on removing her royal status, while this seemingly minor legal detail was allegedly overlooked, only to become important decades later. The account portrays the strategy employed by Princess Diana's legal team in 1996 as exceptionally shrewd. They were negotiating against the full weight of the Crown's legal establishment, an institution that had spent centuries refining the process of bringing private assets under royal control. While palace lawyers were reportedly focused on titles, constitutional precedents, and whether Princess Diana would continue to be known as Her Royal Highness, her own legal team allegedly inserted a clause that appeared almost insignificant at the time. According to the story, it was buried in paragraph 17, subsection 4 of the financial settlement. Because it did not concern money or traditional property, the provision reportedly attracted little attention. Instead, it dealt with intellectual property, personal papers, and other intangible assets that wouldn't normally appear on a balance sheet. The narrative claims that palace lawyers read the clause, dismissed it as unimportant, and returned their attention to negotiating the financial terms of the divorce. They allegedly had no idea that, 28 years later, That forgotten provision would become the legal foundation for challenging what the story describes as the palace's control of the public narrative. According to the account, Charles Spencer knew about the clause because Princess Diana had personally discussed it with him during a conversation at Althorpe. According to the narrative, Princess Diana spent one summer afternoon at Althorpe explaining to Charles Spencer exactly what her lawyers had done and why. She reportedly told him that, after her death, the palace would try to rewrite her story. She believed they would wait until the public's grief had faded into nostalgia before attempting to reshape her legacy and claim control of the narrative. According to this account, she asked Charles Spencer to promise that he would never allow that to happen. And, as the story tells it, Charles Spencer is a man who keeps his promises. Now the scene shifts back to the gala. Queen Camilla is seated at the head table wearing the Greville emeralds, a choice that immediately draws attention. Those emeralds carry significant royal history. They were once owned by Queen Mary, later passed to the Queen Mother, and are now being worn by Queen Camilla. According to the narrative, she is being presented as the matriarch, the woman who outlasted the scandals and ultimately secured her place beside the crown. The story claims that her public relations team had spent years reshaping her image, portraying her as the king's quiet, misunderstood, and steadfast partner. This gala was intended to represent the culmination of that effort, the final step in incorporating Princess Diana's legacy into the palace's carefully managed historical narrative. White lilies, described as Princess Diana's favorite flowers, were placed throughout the venue as decorations. According to the narrative, they served as a symbolic backdrop for an event where her memory was expected to be respectfully archived and absorbed into royal history. The symbolism, the account suggests, was almost impossible to miss. Meanwhile, Queen Camilla appeared completely confident. She sat beside the French ambassador, casually discussing healing and unity while dismissing concerns from her advisors about Charles Spencer's arrival. She reportedly interpreted his tense demeanor as nervousness. She believed he was struggling with the humiliation of publicly surrendering the family's remaining connection to Princess Diana's legacy. According to the story, she had no idea what was about to unfold. The atmosphere inside the room before Charles Spencer entered was described as almost celebratory. The palace had allegedly orchestrated every detail. The lighting was warm and flattering. Vintage Krug champagne was being served. The seating arrangement had been carefully designed to project an image of harmony and continuity, with Queen Camilla positioned at the center, surrounded by loyal courtiers and carefully selected members of the royal household. The room was filled with members of the aristocracy who could be counted on to applaud at exactly the right moments. The cameras had been carefully positioned to capture Queen Camilla's best angles. The teleprompters had been loaded, tested, and prepared in advance. According to the narrative, the entire event was a carefully staged production designed to broadcast one clear message to the world. The drama of the past is over. The crown has prevailed, and the royal family now stands united. But every stage production depends on one thing: everyone following the script. According to the story, Charles Spencer arrived with a script of his own, one that had been quietly developed and legally reinforced over 6 months of late-night meetings, encrypted phone calls, and documents signed in solicitors' offices far from the watchful eyes of the royal household. The palace had reportedly spent 6 months planning the coronation of its narrative. Meanwhile, the account claims that Charles Spencer and Prince William had spent those same 6 months preparing to challenge it. At the same time, Prince William sat 2 tables away in formal evening dress, projecting complete composure. According to the narrative, that calm wasn't simple stoicism, it was intense focus. The story claims he carried a black encrypted phone in his pocket, something described as a major security violation at a royal event. Royal protection officers are portrayed as being exceptionally vigilant about unauthorized electronic devices. However, the narrative argues that Prince William, as the Prince of Wales, possessed emergency override authority connected to the Royal Broadcasting Network, a supposed failsafe reserved for national emergencies. Because he was the heir to the throne, the story suggests that no one questioned his access to systems he was believed to have the authority to use. According to the account, What Prince William allegedly did with that authority was the result of years of careful planning. The narrative claims he didn't merely interrupt a teleprompter, he took control of the entire broadcast feed. As Charles Spencer approached the podium, the palace-approved speech was reportedly displayed on the teleprompter. Its opening line read, "I am profoundly honored to permanently transfer the Spencer Historical Trust to the Crown." According to the story, Charles Spencer looked at those words, and then Prince William tapped his phone twice. Instantly, the teleprompter screens went black. The account goes on to describe chaos erupting inside the control room beneath the museum. Error codes reportedly flashed across every monitor as technicians scrambled to restore the system while attempting to prevent the disruption from reaching the live broadcast. According to the narrative, nearly 3 million people were watching the broadcast from home, unaware of what was unfolding behind the scenes. The story claims that Prince William activated what it describes as an alpha override, a protocol allegedly reserved for national security emergencies. According to the account, the only way to stop the broadcast at that point would have been to physically cut power to the museum, something no one was prepared to do during a televised royal gala. The narrative describes the control room descending into complete chaos. Technicians reportedly shouted over one another while frantically entering commands that accomplished nothing. Diagnostic screens allegedly displayed a complete system lockdown. The broadcast director is said to have demanded that someone shut down the master power switch. However, according to the story, the switch was located in a locked room 2 floors below, and the override protocol had already changed the access codes. The engineers, who had spent weeks preparing for the event, running rehearsals and planning for every possible contingency, allegedly found themselves locked out of their own equipment. One technician reportedly described the experience as watching a ghost take control of the ship. While the control room struggled to regain control, Charles Spencer calmly unfolded a single sheet of pale blue paper and prepared to speak. The millions of viewers watching from home had no idea they were supposedly witnessing what the narrative describes as a technological coup in real time. All they saw was Charles Spencer walking to the podium without a teleprompter, carrying nothing but a single folded document. According to the story, it was immediately clear that something was about to happen that the palace had never anticipated. Standing before an audience of roughly 500 aristocrats, diplomats, and distinguished guests, Charles Spencer showed no sign of panic or hesitation. Instead, he reached into his tuxedo jacket and removed the pale blue document bearing what the narrative identifies as the seal of the High Court of Chancery. The story emphasizes the symbolic importance of that seal. According to the account, the High Court of Chancery is associated with matters involving trusts, estates, and equitable claims rather than criminal law. A document carrying its seal was presented as evidence that a legal arrangement had already been formally structured and approved. The narrative then claims that the moment Queen Camilla saw the seal, she immediately understood its significance. According to the story, the color drained from her face before Charles Spencer had spoken a single word because she realized that whatever was written on the document had already passed through the legal process and could not simply be dismissed. According to the narrative, whatever had been approved by the courts was already finalized. There was no stopping it. When Charles Spencer began to speak, his tone wasn't angry. It was something far more unsettling. He spoke calmly, almost mournfully, with a quiet sense of nostalgia. According to the story, he reflected on how history is often curated by those who survive, how grief gradually becomes softened and polished over time, and how memories are reshaped to fit a more comfortable narrative. He said that Princess Diana had never lived a tidy life and would never have wanted her truth edited by the very institution that, according to the narrative, had tried to silence her. Rather than speaking about Princess Diana as a princess or a global icon, Charles Spencer spoke of her as a sister, as a woman who filled private journals late at night, recording her thoughts, her happiness, her pain, and her fears in her own handwriting. He said she deserved to have her own voice preserved exactly as she had left it. According to the account, Charles Spencer then spoke about the promises he had made to Princess Diana, promises that had weighed on him for nearly 3 decades and that he was finally in a position to honor. Then, according to the narrative, he read a formal declaration. The announcement claimed that the entirety of Princess Diana's personal archives, including her handwritten diaries, private correspondence, and personal papers, would be transferred into a newly created entity. Not the Crown Trust, not the Royal Historical Trust. Instead, the documents would reportedly become part of an independent organization called the 1997 Heritage Trust. According to the story, the trustees were not palace courtiers, but Prince William and Prince Harry. The narrative further claims that they had authorized the immediate, unredacted, worldwide publication of Princess Diana's final journals. According to the account, the atmosphere inside the room changed instantly. The story describes Queen Camilla physically recoiling and accidentally knocking over her water goblet, sending ice water spilling across the white damask tablecloth. For a brief moment, no one moved to assist her. No equerry stepped forward with a napkin. The narrative says that the aristocratic audience, people raised with strict standards of etiquette, momentarily abandoned all sense of formal protocol. Dukes reportedly rose from their seats. Duchesses gasped audibly. Members of the press surged past the barricades as cameras flashed and reporters shouted questions across the room. Amid the chaos, Prince William remained perfectly still. Then, according to the story, he slowly pushed back his chair and began walking toward Queen Camilla's table. His protection officers reportedly called for him to stop. Arthur, the equerry, attempted to intercept him. According to the narrative, Prince William calmly replied with just 3 words: "Stand down, Arthur." Then he continued walking. The equerry froze. According to the narrative, it was the authority of the future king. Not the current king, not the queen consort, but the heir who would one day sit on the throne. Arthur's training reportedly overrode his hesitation, and he stepped aside. Prince William reached the head table and leaned forward, placing both hands flat on the wet tablecloth. As he moved closer to Queen Camilla, she reportedly whispered his name, her voice stripped of the confidence and authority associated with her royal position. She asked what he had done. According to the story, Prince William replied that he had done exactly what the palace had taught him to do: protect and preserve his family's history. He then picked up the black encrypted phone, tapped the screen, and showed her what was displayed. The narrative claims it was an automated delivery confirmation from BBC, the New York Times, and the Washington Post. According to the account, the entire Spencer archives had been decrypted and prepared for publication, with the global embargo scheduled to lift within 60 seconds. Now, according to the story, the focus shifted to what was contained inside those diaries. The reaction of the journalists in the room reportedly revealed the significance of what they were seeing. A veteran royal correspondent, a journalist who had covered palace scandals for 30 years, allegedly opened a file on her tablet before dropping the device onto the marble floor. The story claims she fell to her knees and began crying. According to the narrative, this was not someone who was easily overwhelmed by royal controversy. It was an experienced journalist who had witnessed decades of palace drama. The account claims that the first page she read contained a diary entry from August 1997, written only weeks before Princess Diana's death. According to the story, Princess Diana wrote about what she described as the men in gray suits and palace courtiers who had allegedly created a long-term plan. The narrative claims she believed they could not erase her while she was alive, so they would attempt to reshape and sanitize her legacy after her death. According to the account, she wrote that they would organize a grand public unification of her charitable work, encourage her family to surrender control of her history to a royal trust, and that Queen Camilla would eventually wear the crown's emeralds while presenting a carefully managed public image. The story claims that Princess Diana had predicted the exact scene unfolding decades later: the gala, the trust, the emeralds, and the cameras. According to the narrative, Queen Camilla sat wearing those emeralds while a journalist read Princess Diana's words aloud to hundreds of guests in the room and millions of viewers watching at home. The account concludes that the carefully constructed public image of Queen Camilla as a quiet and dignified consort who earned her position through patience and devotion suddenly began to collapse. According to the story, Princess Diana had anticipated the moment decades earlier, with details that appeared to match the events taking place. The entire world was reading it, but according to the narrative, the situation became even more serious for the palace. While the revelations were unfolding, the secure emergency line at the head table reportedly began ringing. It was described as the red phone reserved for direct communication from the sovereign. According to the story, King Charles III was watching the broadcast from Buckingham Palace and was calling directly into the room. Arthur, the equerry, reportedly reached for the phone with trembling hands. But Prince William moved first. The narrative claims that he took the receiver, walked back toward the podium, and held the earpiece close to the live microphone, allowing everyone in the room and viewers watching the broadcast to hear what his father had to say. According to the account, King Charles III's voice came through the speaker, no longer carrying his usual carefully controlled public tone, but instead sounding emotional and alarmed. The story claims that he ordered Prince William to cut the broadcast immediately, warning that continuing would destroy everything. And according to the narrative, this became the moment when decades of suppressed grief and anger finally surfaced. Standing at the same podium where Charles Spencer had just delivered his dramatic announcement, Prince William allegedly addressed his father directly on live television. He reminded King Charles III of Balmoral in 1997, the cold morning when a 15-year-old Prince William was instructed to put on his dark suit, hide his tears, and walk behind his mother's coffin for the sake of the crown. According to the story, he spoke about decades of silently standing beside the woman who had broken his mother's heart, while being expected to serve as the perfect shield, the obedient heir protecting an institution that had demanded everything from him. The narrative claims that Prince William also spoke about the lonely nights he spent as a teenager at Eton, lying awake in his dormitory room while hearing classmates whisper about his mother's death, conspiracy theories, and tabloid headlines. He was expected to wake up the next morning and pretend none of it affected him because, according to the story, that was what princes were taught to do. They endured. They remained silent. They placed the crown above everything else. Then, according to the narrative, Prince William delivered the words that ended the conversation. "The crown does not own her soul, and you will not own her history. The embargo is lifted." According to the narrative, Prince William delivered one final message. The world will read her words unedited and unchained. He then pressed the red button and disconnected the call with King Charles III. For a moment, silence filled the room. According to the story, it lasted only a second. Then the atmosphere changed completely. The room erupted, not in panic, but in applause. A powerful standing ovation reportedly broke through generations of royal protocol. Dukes, ambassadors, charity representatives, and journalists, people expected to maintain complete composure, stood and applauded. At the center of it all, according to the narrative, Queen Camilla sat devastated, silently crying, with the Greville emerald still around her neck, symbolizing a legacy she could never overcome. When comparing what the palace allegedly intended with what reportedly happened, the narrative claims that the original message completely collapsed. The palace had reportedly briefed the Times that morning that the Spencer family was preparing to surrender the archives. Instead, according to the story, Charles Spencer stood before the audience and presented a legal declaration stating that the archives had already been transferred into a separate trust beyond the Crown's control. The event was presented as a celebration of unity and healing. However, the narrative claims that Princess Diana's alleged 1997 diary entries described a very different picture, one that predicted an attempt to reshape and control her memory. The story claimed that Queen Camilla was being presented as the dignified queen consort who had earned her position. Yet, according to the narrative, she sat at the table with a spilled water goblet and a stunned expression while her stepson challenged the authority of her husband, King Charles III, during a live broadcast. The account suggests this was not a public relations problem that could be solved with a carefully prepared statement. According to the story, the documents had already been released, the embargo had ended, and the public now had access to Princess Diana's words. The narrative further claims that the trust was legally independent, meaning that neither King Charles III, palace lawyers, nor government officials could restrict access to the archives. According to the story, Charles Spencer and Prince William did not simply win a public relations battle, they permanently changed the legal situation surrounding Princess Diana's legacy. The narrative concludes that the palace had spent decades attempting to control the story surrounding Princess Diana, only to lose control during an event held on its own stage, with its own cameras broadcasting to the world. According to the account, the legacy they attempted to contain could no longer be hidden.